Importer Jack Charles of Extra House is determined to import Guyanese rice into the country to sell on the local market at a cheaper price. While a cheaper price is good news for consumers, the idea of having rice imported in the country and sold on the local market is terrifying for local producers. The agro-productive sector, chaired by Dr. Henry Canton, believes that Guyanese rice sold in Belize at a cheaper price will put the rice industry at risk. Charles wants to sell the rice for 69 cents per pound, and he is ready to do that this week after a container carrying more than 40 tons of rice is expected in the country. Dr. Canton and the local farmers believe that this not only spells the end of them, but the destabilization of the entire rice industry in Belize.
Rice farmers, which represent more than 100 people, not four, are of a position that they do not want this rice into Belize because it's going to create havoc and disturb terribly one of the budding and very sensitive industries that can become an import substitution and possibly a strong export product very quickly if given the opportunity to do so. No? The way Mr. Charles, the importer, has taken, the position he's taken is to go to the court of public opinion. And I don't know anybody in this world that would not like something cheaper. So I think it's an unfair fight in the court of public opinion. But if one was to think about the real economy and one was to think about the real long-term effect that this will have on us, they would think again. But I don't think everybody truly understands what it takes to develop an industry, and particularly agricultural industry, where the risks are always out there. No?
What are some of the sentiments that some of the local rice producers have been sharing with you?
They're upset because they thought that they could go ahead and there's a lot more rice put in ground because, as I said, they thought they'd settled the local issue. And what they were trying to do now is to go to increase more than the local issue and actually go to compete on an export marketplace. They have planted this rice. This rice is now in it for, again, this issue to jump up. On rice getting into town, what can we do? At that point in time, I guess we just have to work with government on it because government has, the local rice producers can't do anything to the importer. It would have to be a government's position. And we're hoping that without the right permitting on this rice, that it won't be allowed to be offloaded.
So do you believe what Jack Charles said was that he just wants to import 20% of the rice as they consume locally, and he doesn't want to create a monopoly of imported rice?
Well, all you need is to take 20% out of a very small market of 300,000 people. And if you do the mathematics, you can see the damage it will do. My other question is that how long can he hold the price down? Once that price gets into the market, he's not going to be able to hold it to retail at 69 cents. That's going to immediately go up and start being retailed at the same price that the local rice is being retailed. I think it's a fallacy to speak to the Belizean public on this and that and what he's saying he's going to do when he knows that he's not going to be able to control any of that. On the social issue of 50 cents rice, these guys that grow rice are always donating rice free into the social structure. So I think as good corporate citizens, the rice growers have always been committed to social rice.
Jack Charles would not grant an interview, but he did allow his consultant, Sergio Garcia, to speak on his behalf. Garcia is an agronomist and former CEO in the Ministry of Agriculture, and he told us that the government of Belize cannot prohibit Charles from importing rice since we are part of the CSME market. Here is how he explained it.
Rice or any CARICOM product does not need an import license. And similarly, our products can enter any other country without hindrance. That is that we want to establish that no countries should use quantitative restrictions to a CARICOM product. The second aspect is that the only issue that the country should have is SPS, or what we refer to as the risk to the agricultural health aspect, which is where Baja comes in. The Belize Agricultural Health Authority main focus is to safeguard the health of the agricultural sector, including human health. But I want to say this that last year, Guyanese rice was imported, which was sold. Imported by BNDC, and I understand sold by the same producers who are now crying foul. So, in other words, it is established as a fact that Belize has done a risk assessment of rice coming in from Guyana, and it doesn't pose any kind of risks to the Belizean society. The third component is food security. The producers and some public sector officials are saying that food security will be threatened. That is not true. Food security means that the average Belizean can access food. In Belize, the problem is not a lack of availability. In other words, there is enough food. The problem is one of access, that the average Belizean cannot afford the food.
And what's stopping him from investing in the local rice market?
Again, who has the monopoly on rice? Who has the monopoly on rice? I think, and I will say it in this banner, he has never said he doesn't want to invest. We met with farmers because he has demand. We wanted to export beans. And you know what the response was? They don't want.
Or would you say that it's logical for someone to import rice in a country where there's surplus of rice?
But how can it be surplus? How can it be surplus when 3.2 million pounds of rice was imported last year? I don't buy that issue with surplus. And we are saying that we are not killing, the farmers and these four big millers or the ones who have the monopoly still have 80% of the market. I mean, I don't see Mr. Charles trying to hog up all the market. What we are trying to do is that will also create a public pressure on competition. Competition is good for any national production. So the argument about CASA production and driving them out of business is difficult for me to believe. And I think that Mr. Charles is clear. He said that if the producers drop the price, then he will reconsider his position.
We also spoke to Hazel Pucha, the Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, about the possibilities of Guyanese rice being sold on the local market.
The CSME obligations are quite clear as it relates to rice. I think we've made it abundantly clear that we don't have quantitative restrictions with CARICOM products unless injury is caused. Then we can impose quantitative restrictions. What we have, though, for all animal and plant material coming into the country is the requirements for sanitary permitting to be adhered to as established by Baja. A risk analysis is one thing, but you have to get a permit every time you're bringing in any particular shipment of either plant or animal material. And I'll give you the example of when you're coming into the ham, the individual has to get a permit from Baja. So it's that permitting at every importation that needs to be done. They're being disingenuous in suggesting that is not required. They're an established import company. They know exactly the rules. He has no limitation is being imposed on him as it relates to quantitative. So any amount that he says he will import, that is totally up to him as a private operator. But nothing restriction from importing more than 20%. That's the first point. But more important than this is not an issue about Jack Charles, with due respect. This is an issue of an industry in the region that is quite heavily subsidized, that has lost its market and has a product that they can literally dump. And that is what is happening right now.
The Belize Bureau of Standards sent out a release today in regards to the decrease of control price for grade C rice. The release says that rice grade C will retail at a maximum wholesale of 80 cents and retail at 90 cents per pound.